Allison, do you remember your life before we met? I vaguely remember mine. I remember dating different women, moving from one relationship to another. I remember a few blondes, a few brunettes, and a few redheads. Some were tall, some were short, some were thin, some were overweight, but none of them were really important to me. And then you came along. Do you remember the charity event in support of the hospital? I remember it very well. I remember Aunt Barbara urging me to accompany her as a guest. There were supposed to be a lot of people at this party, and she wanted to introduce me to one of the women. I told her that I was comfortable being a bachelor, enjoying life, but she insisted that I needed a decent companion. For example, a smart, practical doctor who came to New York from Baltimore to work in the cardiology department. I said bluntly that I didn't want her to play the role of a matchmaker, but I was happy to accompany her. At the event, Aunt Barbara introduced me as her nephew and introduced me to various women. But no one has interested me yet. Do you remember what you were wearing that night, Allison? You were wearing an elegant navy blue cocktail dress. It matched your eyes perfectly. The silver shoes matched your blonde hair. When Aunt Barb introduced us, I was amazed. When you smiled, I forgot where I was. Michael, I'd like to introduce Miss Allison Evans. Allison, this is my nephew, Michael Sachs. When did you say? Hi, nice to meet you. It seemed to me that time had stopped. I took your hand and shook it respectfully, and then I said, I want to marry you in a year. You answered, now I know where your reputation as a ladies' man comes from. Aunt Barbara just smiled and left. From that day on, I didn't want to leave you anymore. Do you remember how long I've been trying to get your attention? I've been calling, texting, leaving messages, and sending you flowers for 17 days in a row. It was a bit intrusive, but I couldn't think of anyone else. I dreamed about you every night. Do you remember when I finally asked you out? I gave you a little blue box with a ring and told you that if you agreed to a date, you would receive this gift in 3 months, regardless of how our meetings turned out. Just 3 meetings. You thought I was weird, but you agreed. Do you remember those 3 months, Allison? I remember every minute. Walking through Central Park, Ferry, Spumoni Gardens, baseball game, July 4th, your birthday. We spent 67 days together. Do you remember what was in the box? Do you remember the night before our wedding? You came to me upset. I remember how you talked about the past, about how someone hurt you badly, made you doubt yourself. You asked if I love the real you, for your inner world, for who you are. I said that's why I love you. For your soul, for your heart, for your sincerity. My life is empty without your love. Do you remember our wedding vows, Allison? I remember. We promised to love, respect, take care of, and be faithful to each other. You promised to take care of my heart, and I promised to be with you always. My love for you is the most precious thing I have. Do you remember 7 wonderful years together? Yes, there were times when we didn't see each other. You worked, improved, and became an outstanding cardiac surgeon. I was developing a real estate business. But when we were together, everything else stopped matching. You were my world, and I thought I was yours. Or so I thought. Do you remember our trip to Baltimore when your mom left? I remember it well. Everyone you knew was there. And he was there too. I didn't know that. You didn't say anything. You were in mourning, depressed. I supported you. I did everything that a husband should do. I wasn't prepared for what happened next. Do you remember how everything changed when we came back? How did you say it was just my imagination? I remember. I remember how you pulled away from us. I remember you crying in the shower. I remember you saying that everything was fine when I asked what I could do for you. Even our friends asked if everything was okay, and you snapped at them until they finally stopped asking. It seemed like the world was finally getting the better of us, or at least of me. Do you remember when you went to Baltimore without me? I remember. You didn't even tell me you were going there. We both had a weekend off, remember? We planned to have dinner at home on Friday and go to the flea market at the Met on Saturday morning and just relax the rest of the weekend in each other's arms. I've been waiting for this. To my surprise, you didn't come home on Friday night or even Saturday morning. I called you on your cell phone, called the hospital, your office, and your department. No one knew where you were. Not on Friday, not on Saturday, not on Sunday. I was out of my mind. I called the police and they told me that I couldn't file a missing person report for 48 hours. You came back just before I was about to leave to file the damn application. You just walked into the house, looked at me, went into the bedroom, and closed the damn door behind you. I haven't heard a word from you. You just locked the door, shut me out. My whole world began to crumble. Do you remember how long you kept me in the dark and what you told me? You said that a very close friend needs you, that he is dying of heart problems, and that you are the only one who can save him. It was after 10 days of your crying, 10 days after you shut me out, 10 days after you broke my heart. And when I asked who it was, you still didn't tell me it was him, did you? Do you remember when you started to distance yourself from me? I remember it very well. Richard James Nichols came into your care because of a massive heart injury. Imagine my surprise when Aunt Barb asked me what I thought about how you treat your ex-lover. The expression on my face must have been something special. She immediately realized that something was wrong, and so did I. That's why you were crying. It was him. He was the one who almost destroyed you, who hurt you, and you were broken and crying because of him. How can a monster without a heart have heart problems? Do you remember when you stopped loving me? I remember the day I realized that I didn't mean anything in your life anymore. It was March 31st. It's my 35th birthday. I was hoping you'd remember him. I know that we argued, that we fought with each other. I told you that I want my wife back, that you're no longer the woman I loved and married, that when the monster returned, you ran to him again and let him destroy what we had built and what we had created together. You told me that I'm not the man you married if I don't see that he needs you to save his life, that any life is worth saving. We agreed to at least try to save what we have left. Meet me at my birthday party at Frank's for dinner and wine. It was 7 p.m., then 8, then 9 and 10, and then closing time. You never showed up. I came home only 4 days later. You were cold and didn't apologize. The power I loved in you was now tearing me apart. I loved you and hated you at the same time. My precious lover and tormentor at the same time. Do you know what day our marriage died? The same day it started. May 4th. For 5 weeks, when we didn't talk and I didn't touch you or smell your hair or skin, it was killing me. My heart was breaking and my love was slowly fading away. I knew that if I didn't see you, touch you, kiss you, I would die. I went to a florist and found 24 of the most beautiful roses I've ever seen. A dozen reds for my sweetheart and a dozen yellows for my girlfriend, like I always did on our anniversary. I've searched the entire cardiology department up and down looking for you. I asked every nurse I saw about you. They all lowered their eyes and looked down. I took a chance and went to his room, ready to talk. When I got there and looked in, I saw you next to him. You were sitting by the bed, looking at him carefully, holding his hand. At that moment, I realized you opened your heart to him again. Everything that had been between us now belonged to someone else. The man who hurt you once before has now taken everything from me. My heart couldn't stand it. That's when I realized we were gone. Our love story has come to a sad end. Allison, you are the love of my life and the reason for my existence. At the same time, I can't bring myself to share you with others. Just the thought of touching someone else the way you touched him destroys me. At the same time, I love you too much to deny you your happiness. So I'm taking myself out of the equation. 1 + 1 should always equal 2 and never 3. You and Richard were together before I came into your life. You were happy with him once, but he did something stupid. Now he's back in your life and in your heart. I hope he treats you better this time. Otherwise, I won't be around to put you back together. I'm leaving. I'm going somewhere where no one can find me. Somewhere where I can find peace and maybe become whole again. I'll miss you forever. Don't worry about the divorce. My lawyer will contact you soon. I made sure that you were provided for. With eternal love. Michael. Reading Michael's letter, I felt tears running down my cheeks and my hands were numb. I was trying to figure out how I could be so stupid and selfish. How could I push my beautiful husband away? As I started to shake off the cobwebs, I recognized the voice of Barbara, Michael's aunt, screaming. You're stupid. Then I saw her fist coming towards my face, and then nothing. Beep, 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 beep. At first, I only saw darkness, then gradually realized that I could see with my right eye. Obviously, his left eye was covered with a bandage, and his face was swollen. Barbara was a strong and domineering woman, and she was Sicilian, just like Michael. It wasn't like Barbara to yell at anyone like that, especially at me. She was the one who introduced me to Michael. I'll always be in her debt for that. Michael is the love of my life. Wait, Michael. He left me a letter. As my mind cleared, I began to remember the letter. Michael said he was leaving me. He wrote so many things, and now it's all flooding back to me. My name is Allison Sachs, and Michael is my husband. Barbara introduced Michael to me at the hospital's annual fundraiser. She told me all about her only nephew. Michael's father, Barbara's brother, and mother died when he was 16, and she took over his upbringing. She was so proud of him. Michael graduated from Princeton with an MBA and conquered the world of real estate in New York. His good looks, charisma, and tenacity made him successful by the age of 30. He specialized in commercial real estate and earned substantial sums. I am a cardiothoracic surgeon and, as it turned out, one of the best in my field. I've been studying and training for years. I always thought that being a doctor was my life's goal. Until I met Michael. I've heard stories from some of the nurses about Barbara's nephew, about his past, his connections, his popularity with women. From the gossip, you'd think he had a lot of female fans. When Barbara introduced us, all I could feel was magic. I've never seen such a person with such deep eyes. And he was fascinated by me. I still don't understand why. We talked and danced a few songs. During one conversation, I told him that I had heard about his reputation and was not going to let him play with me. He looked into my eyes and said, "You changed my whole life tonight. I want to marry you, start a family, and grow old together." My first thought was, my God, he's really charming. "You must be telling everyone that." "I've never said that in my life," he replied. I forced myself to interact with the other guests and danced with some of the senior members of the council. Michael was nearby the whole time. Towards the end of the evening, Michael saw me off, hailed a taxi, and asked, "Can I call you tomorrow?" I said I'd be busy with operations in the coming weeks, but I gave you the office number. As my taxi drove away, I felt my heart constrict. This man was special. I couldn't afford to make mistakes again. Again, you ask? Yes, again. In 32 years of my life, I've had 3 serious relationships and 1 fiancé. His name was Richard James Nichols. My mother introduced us when I was 24. He was 8 years older than me and was also a doctor. He knew how to say nice things, but he could also hurt a lot. We had been dating for 2 years when he proposed. I agreed, and we started making plans. Then my father died. It was very hard for me. I wanted to postpone the wedding for 6 months. We argued, but he agreed. 6 weeks before the wedding, I went into his office and found him with another woman. I took off my wedding ring, dropped it, and left, despite his pleas to stay. My mother tried to smooth things over. Richard appeared, and the argument began. Mom tried to convince me that one mistake is not the end. But I remembered my father's words. Once a cheater, always a cheater. I have applied for positions in New York, Los Angeles, and Boston. I was offered a job in New York. After a few years in cardiology, I was given a position at Mount Sinai. There I met Barbara and, through her, Michael. Michael called me every day, wrote to me, sent me flowers. He was persistent. And then one day I saw him in the hospital lobby. He begged for 5 minutes. We went into a coffee shop. He took out a box from Tiffany's with a ring. Everything he said, "Go on 3 dates with me in 3 months. Regardless of the result, you will keep the ring." I was stunned. He barely knew me, but he was serious. We went on a date the next night, and again, and again. We went on 67 dates in 3 months. I was fascinated by this man. We went to the opera, on city tours, and to stadiums. After one of the dates, we ended up at his house. I was surprised at how cozy his house turned out to be. Everything was decorated with taste. After 3 months, Michael took out the same box again and proposed to me. I agreed. We started planning our lives together. Some of my friends threw me a bachelorette party, and we went to a fancy bar to have a couple of cocktails. While we were laughing and toasting, a beautiful brunette came up to me. She was about 178 centimeters tall, with long black hair, deep blue eyes, and an attractive appearance. She introduced herself as Veronica. I recognized her as a model from some magazines that nurses read at work, and then she asked about Michael. It turns out that she was dating him when we met at the party. I knew I couldn't compare to her, and all my pain from the past and all my new fears surfaced in my head at the same time. On the eve of the wedding, I went to our apartment, cried on Michael's shoulder, and told him everything. All about my father's death, how my fiancé deceived me, and about meeting Veronica. While I was crying, he held me tightly and confidently. It was then that he told me that I was holding in my hands the one thing that no one else had done. His heart. I kissed him, and then he hugged me and carried me to the bedroom. No, there was nothing intimate. He said that tomorrow was a special moment that he lived for, to fulfill my dreams. And so it happened. 120 friends, relatives, and business partners were there to hear us say our vows. Even Michael's distant relatives were there. He brought them from Palermo. The next 2.5 years were a dream. We worked, rested, traveled, and enjoyed time together. Life was perfect, and then everything changed. My mother died, and we came to Baltimore for the funeral. I hated going back there. All my pain was there. The death of my father, and now my mother. And my ex-fiancée is a traitor. Of course, Richard was there with his new wife. She was older than me, but younger than Richard. I showed it to Michael. Michael's face darkened, and I realized that he hated Richard for hurting me. When Michael loved, he loved very much. When he hated even more. The sight of Richard there and my dead mother changed something in me. Michael noticed it right away. I became close to him, even after we returned home. Now I know that I should have gone to a therapist, but I didn't. Less than 6 months later, Richard was sitting in my office. He needed a heart transplant. He already knew about it at the Baltimore funeral, but he didn't want to bring it up. He came to ask for my help, as I was part of the cardiology team at Mount Sinai Medical Center. It was the 3rd week of February. I told him that I would think about it and talk to Michael. "I've never stopped loving you," Richard told me. "If what happened between us meant anything to you, you'll help me." I invited Michael to meet me at our favorite Italian restaurant and explained my dilemma. He was unhappy, especially when I told him what Richard had said, but in the end he left the decision up to me. All Michael said was, "I trust you completely." Of course, I took on Richard, and that's where my life fell apart. By the middle of March, Richard was transferred to my department, and I started visiting him every day. And every day he reminded me how good it was for us, how much I mean to him, and how much he loves me. This man knew how to put pressure on my weak points. The more time I spent with him, the further away I got from Michael. Michael was involved in negotiations over property near the Statue of Liberty. The premium for the deal would be very high and would be calculated in 6 figures. Yes, I completely forgot about Michael's birthday. It came on the day Richard got worse. I was in the hospital until midnight and didn't realize it until 2 days later. I was too ashamed to say anything. Seriously, what kind of wife forgets about her husband's birthday? I vowed to myself to catch up on our anniversary in just a few weeks. Michael kept trying to talk to me, and I kept pushing him away. "I'll fix it on our anniversary," I told myself. For the next 5 weeks, our marriage suffered because of my silence and Michael's constant desire to talk to me. It was our anniversary, and when I was about to leave for home, I was told that Richard was getting worse, and he would most likely die if he didn't get a heart transplant soon. I went to him with sadness in my heart, knowing that the man I once loved was most likely doomed. When he saw me, he asked me to stay by his side. While we were talking, I remembered all our times together. He kissed me, and I responded. All my old feelings started coming back, and I stayed with him to support him. I stayed with him all night and fell asleep in his arms. Morning came, and suddenly a frenzied activity began. It turned out that a heart had been found for Richard. I was overjoyed when they told me the news, and then the transplant nurse came in, looked at me strangely, and took Richard away for surgery. As I walked to the locker room, I passed by the nurse's station, and one of them handed me Michael's letter. That's the trouble. Michael, our anniversary. I'll have to explain a lot this time, but he loves me, and I'm sure he'll forgive me. I opened his letter, and my world turned upside down. Not only did I forget about his birthday and our anniversary, but he also saw me with Richard. He was leaving me. This takes us back to the beginning, when I woke up to Barbara beating me half to death. As I sat on the gurney, disconnected from the monitors, William Everson, our chief cardiologist, came into the room, looking like he had met death. I immediately told him that I would not press any charges against Barbara. He looked at me and said, "That's not why I'm here. As you know, Richard Nichols underwent a donor heart transplant. The donor died less than 3 hours ago." I told him that I knew and was grateful for the donor. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. "I don't think you'll do that," he continued. "Michael was here this morning to leave you something." As he was leaving, he got out between 2 parked cars, trying to hail a taxi. He paused before continuing. "Michael was hit by a bus. He's dead, Allison. He died at the hospital door." Looking at William, I was stunned. "Not my Michael." "No," I screamed. "This can't be happening. It just can't be. Michael died because of me." William grabbed me and held me, continuing. "Michael was an organ donor. Michael's heart was transplanted to Richard Nichols." What happened next was explained to me when I was brought to my senses. Apparently, I fell right there and went into catatonia for 3 days. Barbara had to identify Michael's body and arrange his funeral. It turned out that when he was hit by the bus, he had a suitcase with him, a one-way ticket to Palermo, and about $10,000 in cash. When I recovered from the shock, it was the day of his funeral. My psychiatrist said I shouldn't go, but neither hell nor the storm could stop me. When his coffin was lowered into the grave next to his parents, I completely lost control. Michael's family lawyer was there. He gave me a business card and asked me to call when I could handle some things. For years later, I lived my life in a small cabin in the Adirondack Mountains of upstate New York. Michael bought this place, and it was supposed to be an anniversary present. His last anniversary present to us. I met with lawyers, and in his will, Michael left Barbara $2.5 million. He left the rest to me. An apartment in the city, this cabin, and $7 million in cash and stock. I am the poorest millionaire in the world. I've lost everything. I never returned to work after Michael's funeral. I felt like I could just start crying at any moment of the surgery. I've been in Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital 3 times. Now I spend my days trying to work up the courage to put Michael's Beretta 9mm pistol in my mouth and pull the trigger, hoping I'll see him again in the afterlife. What stops me is the question of whether I can be with Michael if I commit suicide. The hell I'm in right now, hoping to see him again, is probably better than hell without the hope of ever seeing Michael again. Every morning and every night I pray for death. But my prayers remain unanswered. What happened to Richard, you ask? His wife caught him cheating again. They had a fight, and he slapped her. In response, she grabbed a chef's knife and stabbed him right in the heart. Michael's heart. My heart. Everything Michael had is gone now. And it's totally my fault. Please, God, take me away from here and let me see my precious Michael.